Last week, a guy tried to trade me his 3-year-old crossover and acted like he was doing me a favor. Meanwhile, the full-size SUV I drove to work that morning cost me less than his little runabout, carries 3 more people, and has a V8 that will still be running when both of us are gray. That's the dirty little secret of the full-size market. The badges everyone's afraid of are the exact ones mechanics quietly hoard for their own families. After 2 decades under these things, I can hand you 7 full-size SUVs you can buy today for under 20 grand. That shrug off 250,000 miles like a warm-up lap. Number 1 is the one I'd stake my own driveway on. Let's count them down. Number 7, Chevrolet Tahoe. I'm starting here because the Tahoe is the cheapest, honest way to get your family into something big, safe, and dead simple to fix. And that last part matters more than people realize. When a Tahoe rolls into my shop, I'm not sweating because I already have the parts on the shelf and I've done the job 100 times. Every parts counter in America stocks this truck. Every mechanic on earth has worked on the 5.3-liter V8. That alone can save you thousands over the life of ownership because labor and parts on an exotic SUV will bury you no matter how reliable it is. The 5.3 in the Tahoe, Suburban, and their GMC twins is a genuinely tough little small block. It's naturally aspirated, it's iron blocked in most configurations, and guys are routinely getting past 250,000 miles on them. But I'm not going to lie to you the way the dealer will, because there's one thing you have to know before you buy. On the 2007 and up trucks, GM ran a system called Active Fuel Management, AFM for short. It shuts off 4 cylinders when you're cruising to save fuel. Clever on paper. In the real world, those AFM lifters can collapse, and when one goes, it can wipe out the camshaft with it. That's the difference between a cheap fix and a $4,000 teardown. Here's how you play it smart. First, favor the 4.8-liter engine if you can find one, because it never had AFM at all. Second, on any 5.3, ask for oil change records and pull the oil cap to look for sludge, because the 2011 to 2014 trucks had a piston ring oil consumption problem serious enough that GM settled a class action lawsuit over it. Third, on a cold start, listen, a ticking, tapping top end is your warning sign. Walk away or negotiate hard. And fourth, a lot of my customers just install an AFM disabler for a couple $100 and drive them to the moon. Do that, keep the oil clean, and a Tahoe is one of the most fixable, cheapest to own full-size SUVs on the planet. You can find solid ones all day long between $12,000 and $18,000. If the Tahoe is the smart budget move, this next one is the SUV nobody talks about, and that's exactly why it's a steal. Number 6, Nissan Armada. The Armada is the vehicle I recommend to the customer who wants a Toyota Sequoia but got sticker shock. Because mechanically, the first generation Armada is a body-on-frame tank with a truck engine, and the market treats it like a mistake. That depreciation is your gain. Under the hood is the 5.6-liter VK56, the same basic V8 family Nissan put in the Titan and the Infiniti QX56. This is not some fragile economy motor. It makes north of 300 horsepower, it runs a timing chain instead of a belt, and I've seen these engines cross 250,000 miles when the owner just changed the fluids. That's the whole trick with the Armada. It doesn't fail from bad design, it fails from neglect, because people bought them cheap and treated them cheap. So your inspection is really about the last owner. First, get underneath and look at the exhaust manifolds, because cracking is a known Nissan V8 quirk, especially past 100,000 miles. You'll hear it as a ticking that sounds like an exhaust leak because it is one. Not a deal breaker, but it's leverage on price. Second, and this is the big one, demand transmission service history. The Armada's automatic is durable, but it does not forgive years of ignored fluid. No records, budget for a full service the week you buy it. Third, ask about fuel habits. because these engines are sensitive to bad gas, and cheap contaminated fuel can foul the catalytic converters over time. And fourth, test every power feature, seats, liftgate, climate, because a neglected Armada nickel and dimes you on electrical bits while the engine keeps soldiering on. Here's the math that makes me love it. A clean Armada with 100,000 miles can be had in the low teens, sometimes under $10,000. That's Corolla money for a 3-row V8 body-on-frame SUV that will tow a boat. Nobody wants the Nissan badge in this class, which is precisely why the smart buyer wins. Number 5, Ford Expedition. Now, I have to be careful with the Expedition because there's a right way and a very wrong way to buy one, and the dealer will happily sell you the wrong one. Get this part right, and you've got a massive, comfortable, cheap-to-run family hauler. Get it wrong, and you've got a headache with spark plugs launching out of the cylinder head. The engine to understand is the 5.4-liter Triton 5.8. In its early 3-valve form, roughly 2004 through 2006, it earned a bad reputation for spitting out spark plugs and eating cam phasers. Those years have some of the worst complaint records in the nameplate's history, and I tell people to steer clear. But here's what nobody explains to you: Ford fixed it. By around 2010 and 2011, they redesigned the head with a one-piece spark plug, and the problem essentially went away. That's why the 2011 to 2014 Expedition is the sweet spot, a proven V8, a solid 6-speed automatic, and a price that's fallen through the floor. The older 2-valve 5.4 from the late 90s and early 2000s is also a genuinely tough motor if you find a clean one. When you're shopping, first, nail down the model year and engine, because that single detail separates a bulletproof Expedition from a problem child. Second, on the third-gen trucks, check the aluminum body panels around the hood and tailgate for corrosion bubbling, a known quirk that's cosmetic but tells you how the truck was kept. Third, on any high-mile Triton, listen at cold start for a rattle that sounds like a diesel, which can point to cam phaser wear. And fourth, feel the transmission through 2 or 3 shifts, because a neglected auto will flare or clunk. Buy the right year, and a 2011 to 2014 Expedition gives you suburban level space, a real American V8, and running costs a fraction of anything European, usually for $12,000 to $18,000. The badge scares people. The right one shouldn't scare you. Number 4, GMC Yukon XL. Think of the Yukon XL as the Suburban that put on a nicer suit. Same rugged bones, same enormous cargo hold, but GMC dressed the interior up a notch. And because it doesn't wear a Cadillac Escalade badge, you pay a fraction of the price for basically the same living room on wheels. This is the road trip machine. If you've got a big family, a trailer, and 1,000 miles of highway ahead of you, nothing swallows people, luggage, and dogs like the long wheelbase GMC. It shares its drivetrain philosophy with the Tahoe I already covered, so I won't repeat the whole engine lecture. Just remember the same AFM homework applies. And once you've handled that, you've got a body-on-frame V8 that keeps going. What I want you to appreciate here is the value gap. Empty nesters and grandparents love these for road trips, which means the used market is full of Yukon XLs that were garaged, waxed, and serviced on time, then sold at 50 cents on the dollar because they're just a GMC. Your checklist: first, sit in the third row and fold everything, because a family SUV that's been abused shows it back there. Torn seats and trashed cargo areas tell you the truck was ridden hard. Second, check for that AFM lifter tick on cold start and confirm oil change records. Third, test the 4-wheel drive transfer case by shifting it through its modes on a test drive, listening for grinding. And fourth, look hard at the rear liftgate struts and power hardware, the common annoyance on these big GMCs. Find a clean, grandparent-owned Yukon XL in the 15 to 19,000 range, and you've bought a rolling apartment that'll do 200,000 miles without drama. Now we climb into rarefied air, because these last 3 are the SUVs I'd bet my own money on, And the reason is one legendary Toyota 5.8. Number 3, Lexus LX 470. Here's a magic trick the badge snobs never figure out. The Lexus LX 470 is a Toyota Land Cruiser wearing a tuxedo. Same frame, same drivetrain, same indestructible bones, but because it's an old Lexus, it depreciates into a price you would not believe for what you're actually getting. This is champagne engineering on a beer budget. Under the hood sits the 4.7-liter 2 UZF-E V8, and I need you to remember that engine code because it's about to come up again as we climb this list. This is one of the most durable V8 engines Toyota ever built. A cast iron block, conservative tuning, no turbos to fail, engineered from the start to outlast the vehicle around it. Owners routinely see these past 300,000 miles, and there are documented Toyota trucks running this V8 family that have crossed 1 million miles. In an LX 470, that legendary heart is wrapped in leather, sound deadening, and a ride quality that still embarrasses vehicles twice its age. 2 things make or break your purchase. First, the 2UZ uses a timing belt, not a chain, and it needs replacing around every 90,000 miles. If the seller can't prove it was done, that's not a reason to run, it's leverage. But budget for it, because a snapped belt on this engine bends valves. Second, the LX 470 has a hydraulic height control suspension that's fantastic when it works and expensive when it's ignored. So on your test drive, make sure it raises and lowers properly and check for fluid leaks. Handle those 2 items and everything else is just oil changes. A clean LX 470 in the teens is one of the great secret luxury buys in the entire used market. If the LX is the luxury play, the next one is the vehicle people buy once and keep for the rest of their lives. Number 2, Toyota Land Cruiser. The Land Cruiser is not a car purchase, it's an inheritance. This is the SUV that United Nations convoys and desert outfitters trust with lives because it simply does not quit. The 100 series from the late 90s through 2007 runs that same 2 UZF-E 4.7 V8 we just talked about, and in the Land Cruiser, it's mated to a chassis engineered to cross continents. When people say buy it for life, this is the vehicle they mean. Now, honesty time, because a good mechanic does not oversell. A truly pristine Land Cruiser is getting harder to find under $20,000 because the world finally caught on and prices climbed. But higher mileage examples still land in your budget. And here's the thing about a Land Cruiser. High mileage on one of these is like middle age on a healthy person. A 180,000 mile cruiser that was maintained has plenty of life left. You're buying the back half of a marathon that the truck was built to finish. Your inspection is different from the others. First, get underneath and inspect the frame for rust. Because on these body-on-frame Toyotas, the frame is the one thing you cannot easily fix, and rust belt trucks can rot back there. A clean southern or western frame is worth paying more for. Second, confirm that timing belt service, same 90,000 mile rule as the LX. Third, check that the full-time 4-wheel drive system engages smoothly with no clunking on a tight, low-speed circle. Get those 3 right, and a Land Cruiser will very likely outlast your interest in owning it. There's a reason mechanics get misty-eyed over these. And that brings us to number 1. This is the SUV I recommend. More than any other in this class, the one I'd buy tomorrow with my own money. And almost everyone underestimates it until they own one. Number 1, Toyota Sequoia. The Sequoia is the smartest full-size SUV buy in America, and I'll tell you exactly why. It takes the Land Cruiser's legendary reliability and Toyota's bomb-proof V8 engineering, wraps it in a body with more usable interior room than almost anything else on this list, and then, because most people don't even know it exists, it sells for thousands less than it has any right to. Let's talk engines, because this is where it gets ridiculous. The first generation Sequoia, from 2001 through 2007, runs that same 4.7-liter 2UZ FE V8. the exact bulletproof engine that makes the Land Cruiser and the LX 470 legends. Then from 2008 on, Toyota dropped in the 5.7-liter 3UR FE V8, which trades the timing belt for a timing chain and adds serious power while keeping the same durability DNA. Either one is a winner. And this isn't just my opinion. When one big reliability study crunched the odds of an SUV reaching 250,000 miles, the Sequoia came out on top of the entire field, with roughly a 39% chance of getting there, against an industry average of under 5%. Read that again. It is nearly 8 times more likely than the average vehicle to hit 250,000 miles. That's not a car, that's an appliance you happen to drive. Because you're buying an older or higher mileage Sequoia to stay under $20,000, your checklist matters. First and most important, inspect the frame for rust, because the early Sequoias and their Tundra cousins had frame corrosion issues serious enough that Toyota addressed them. So you want a clean frame and proof any recall work was done. Second, on a first generation 2UZ FE, verify the timing belt was replaced on schedule, same 90,000 mile rule, and treat missing records as a bargaining chip, not necessarily a deal breaker. Third, on the high mileage 5.7, listen for any timing chain rattle at cold start and check for oil leaks. Fourth, my pro tip from years of doing this, hunt for the one owned by a couple whose kids grew up and moved out. That Sequoia got garaged, waxed, and babied, and it's basically a time capsule. Here's my final word on the Sequoia. 3 rows, a truck tough V8, Land Cruiser reliability, and the best odds in the business of reaching 250,000 miles, all for the price of a used compact crossover, purely because the badge doesn't shout for attention. If I had to buy one full-size SUV right now and drive it for the next decade with the lowest possible cost of ownership, I wouldn't overthink it. I'd buy a Sequoia and never look back. So there they are. 7 full-size SUVs the market forgot, but mechanics never did. The Chevy Tahoe with parts on every shelf in the country. The overlooked Nissan Armada that's Corolla money for a V8 tank. The Ford Expedition, as long as you buy the right year. The Yukon XL road trip barge that grandparents babied for you. And then the holy trinity of that legendary Toyota V8. The LX 470 in a tuxedo, the buy it for life Land Cruiser, and the smartest buy of them all, the Sequoia. Next time a salesman steers you towards some 3-year-old lease return with a turbo that's already ticking, you'll know better. You'll know the big, boring, badge-shy SUV 2 rows back is the one that'll still be running when his fancy trade-in is in a junkyard. Do me one favor before you buy any of them. Get underneath and check that frame, because on a body-on-frame SUV, rust is the one enemy you can't out-wrench. If this saved you from a bad buy, you know what to do. Drive safe, take care of the truck, and it'll take care of your whole family for a long, long time. I'll see you in the next one.